Hi, everyone, and welcome to the RavenCast. This is the episode for February 3rd, 2017. My name is Adam Erickson, and I'm here with Lindsay Paris Lopez. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Adam.
How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, thanks. You were recently at the Women's March that happened after Trump's inauguration.
Yes. Yes, I
Yeah,
was.
and tell me a little bit about that.
It was quite an experience. There were so many people, and the the overwhelming feeling was one of joyful resistance. I mean, we were all there because, on the one hand, we were unhappy with the way the world is going, and particularly with the new administration, but there have been reasons to march for a long time. But on January 21st, people from all over the world got up and marched, and that made it easier and safer. And it felt good to feel in solidarity with so many people. But
Yeah, it felt good to be in solidarity with so many people, but there were a group of people who were not invited to the march. Is that right?
it depends on how you define invited.
Okay.
But there were certainly people made to feel very unwelcome, deliberately made to feel unwelcome.
And who were these people who were made to feel this way?
People in the pro-life community were made to feel excluded. Some people deliberately said pro-life people will not be welcome.
Okay, so this has brought up the issue of abortion in our culture once again, and I know that you have a story to tell about your movement in this abortion issue.
Well, I just speak as somebody who has not only considered different sides, but really felt part of different sides of the movement at various points in my life. And so I grew up in a pro-choice household, and I was taught that the freedom to choose what to do with a woman's body is a fundamental right, one of the most fundamental rights that women have. And, our family would see and approve of things like bumper stickers that would say, if you don't trust me with a choice, how can you trust me with a child? And so I grew up seeing a fundamental difference between a child inside the womb and a child outside the womb. And I didn't really think about when life began. But I knew that if abortion were illegal, it would be unsafe. Women would still have them. I knew that women got abortions for all kinds of reasons, and some of them, perhaps many of them, felt desperate, felt that a child was not a valid choice at that point in their life. And since I didn't really think about when life began, it didn't really bother me very much. The idea of children being born to parents who didn't want them and being born in cycles of poverty did bother me. But I didn't really think about the problematic implications of the alternative to that. So that was how I grew up. And there was one point on my faith journey that really made me feel like it is an amazing, wonderful blessing that God loves us no matter who else does. When I felt there were times when I felt really, really down on myself and felt like I knew my family loved me, but it was hard for me to love myself even. And what got me through those times was faith that God loved me. And thinking about that made me feel like even the most unwanted, unloved person, even the most irredeemable person was loved. And that made me feel like, you know, human life is inherently valuable, no matter what. Like, no matter what. And, you know, I combined that understanding with my understanding of when life begins. At some point, it just became clear to me that, of course, life begins at conception, because any other point in human development to consider a beginning of life is not only arbitrary, but inaccurate. It seemed to me that, you know, a unique set of DNA formed upon conception, and therefore that's a human life. So at that point, all those things, all those circumstances, and with everything that happened to me, it just seemed like abortion was wrong. But even though I came to that perspective from a faith-based perspective, it seemed important to me to also ground it in science, and it just seemed like just scientifically obvious that life began at conception. And so you make a moral choice to start valuing life from its very beginning. And when I put all that together, abortion just seemed wrong. But then I thought about it some more. And I thought about, well, yes, I'll make an exception for the life of the mother, of course. If the mother can't survive, of course, neither can the child. And it's just obvious. And then what if the mother's health is really in danger, but she can survive? Is it fair to put her through a pregnancy? Well, no, not really. It's not. And then what if the baby has so much health issues that its life would be painful and short? Is it kinder to abort the baby before it can feel pain? Well, there can be disagreements, but how can you legislate that? And my exceptions kept growing because I tried to be very compassionate and considerate to the individual situation, and laws can't do that. So I eventually came to a point where I conceded that we can't really legislate abortion because it's such an intimate and private and personal thing. But I never stopped thinking that abortion is a tragedy and that we should work to reduce them whenever possible. And I never really stopped believing that, legislation shapes our understanding of our culture. So I always saw the point of legislating against abortion, but I can't really go there now. And, I feel like my position probably bothers everybody, that there are people on all kinds of sides who would see something wrong with it. And everyone's position is incomplete. But that's where I am now. So.
Yeah, it seems to me that a lot of people on both sides of this issue would agree with you, though, that we want to see fewer abortions. A lot of people in the pro-choice movement don't define themselves as pro-abortion, but as abortions is something that sometimes people need to have for various circumstances, as you said. I think a lot of this hyper-politicizing of this issue is setting up a rivalry that doesn't need to exist. I think that it pits women against children, against unborn children. And instead of viewing it that way, I think a much better pro-life, pro-choice move would be to both care for the unborn child and for the woman and for the child outside of the womb at the same time. If we're going to be pro-life, we need to be pro-life both in the womb and outside of the womb. A lot of women make this decision because, unfortunately, I speak as a male, and often the male side of this issue is never talked about. But a lot of times, the reason women are put in this choice, very hard, difficult choice of abortion, is because the men up and leave. Mm-hmm. There's no other support here, and women are put in a very difficult situation. And if we as a society want to be pro-life, we need to be pro-life outside of the womb too.
Absolutely. I mean,
and I know that I've heard arguments before that this is the woman's responsibility. This is the pull yourself up by your own bootstraps argument. And it's a false argument because, as mimetic theory teaches us, we are not individuals. We are inter-individuals. We are our brother and our sister's keeper and our children's keeper. This is, I think, the point of the Judeo-Christian and Islamic faith understanding of who we are as human beings.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, no matter where I've been on the spectrum regarding abortion, I have never divorced it from my understanding that we need to care for people at all stages of life. And I was never under the impression that abortion was ever an easy decision, a decision ever made lightly. And the factors that come into consideration are so varied. If we want to reduce abortions, we need to care for people at all stages of life, and we need to work on the issues that would make abortion seem in some cases like the most compassionate option. I mean, we need to work on reducing violence, protecting our environment, reducing poverty. It's all interconnected. And sometimes encouraging male responsibility, that's one of the harder things because good men already know their responsibility. And but if we take care of all aspects of life and start from the place that we're all interconnected and we all depend on each other and we all need each other, then maybe male responsibilities along with everything else would just come more naturally. It would just be, there's just so much to think about. Abortion and, well, not abortion, but where life begins and what life means is the issue here. And everything is connected to it. So.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that both sides might be able to celebrate is that abortions have gone down in the last few years. And part of that is because contraception has gotten easier to get, cheaper to get. Another, I saw on the Washington Post an article that related it to an MTV show called 16 and Up. Have you seen this show? It was around.
No, I've heard of 16 and Pregnant. And
that's it. Yes, that's it. 16 and Pregnant. And it was around like in 2010, and it showed teenagers who had gotten pregnant. And oftentimes at that age, we have this kind of glamorized view of having children, and it's just going to be easy and fun. And it showed actually the difficulties of having children, and it's not all roses. And so there was Washington Post was making a statement that pregnancies, teenage pregnancies, had gone down as a result of teenagers watching this show and seeing, wow, this isn't as easy as we thought it was.
Well, yeah, and that's when shows can create empathy, that's a great thing. My hesitation is that shows like that can create both empathy and shame. The same situation can create empathy or shame, and we need to be working towards empathy and away from shaming pregnant women, especially. We need to move away from shaming single pregnant women. I mean, that's an underlying cause of not only abortion, all kinds of issues. I think one of the ironies of our culture, or I don't even want to indict our whole culture, but there is an irony in the fact that we have a president who both campaigned on saying that there should be some sort of punishment for women who have abortions, and yet he runs beauty pageants. And, not just, there's a lot of horrible, inexcusable behavior and things that he has said, things that he has done, but just the beauty pageants alone is not nearly the worst of it, but the fact that we have a culture that glamorizes women's beauty and teaches women from birth on that beauty is their most important aspect. And then we shame them for getting pregnant, which is, we teach women that they want to be desired by men. And then we teach girls that they want to be desired by boys. And so we have a very hypersexualized culture, and then there's a big stigma against pregnancy, and it shouldn't be, young pregnancy shouldn't be encouraged, but we should move away from shame. And it just seems like we have to make so many fundamental changes to get to an ideal point where pregnancies would be the result of committed relationships and the children would be wanted and loved and cared for.
And I think it's also a societal commitment that we are going to stand together in this. It's an interdependence that we share with one another. And if we're going to take families seriously, then we need to do all we can to have support mechanisms in place where we can have real family values. So
absolutely. And we need to broaden our understanding of the family, broaden our understanding of interconnection and responsibility to each other, because we all rely on each other, and we rely on more than just our families. We rely on people we don't even know for our health care, for our food, for everything that it takes to live. So we need to know how to look out for each other, and we need to care about that. Our colleague Suzanne wrote an article several years ago about abortion, and she wrote about how viability for the baby becomes the turning point as to, in a lot of people's minds, abortion is okay up until the time a child in the womb is viable, and then it's no longer okay. And she makes the point that an infant on its own can never survive, but then she makes the broader point that adults on our own can never survive. And it's so interesting that we consider independence as a fundamental, as something that makes us fundamentally human, when the exact opposite is true. What makes us human is our dependence on each other. And if we understand that, I think we will care for life in all of its stages from the womb onward. That's my hope, anyway.
Absolutely. It's my hope too. And Lindsay, thank you for this fascinating discussion on abortion. And I've learned a lot from it. And thank you, everybody, for watching or for listening in to the RavenCast. We would love to read your comments in the comment section below. You can like us on iTunes and on Stitcher.
I'm a little afraid to read some of the comments, to be honest. This is not an easy discussion, and what we have said is incomplete. And I just want to say that everything I've said, I've tried to come from a place of compassion and understanding, and I know the same is true for you, Adam. So I hope that all of the comments come from the same place of compassion and understanding too.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks again, Lindsay, and thanks for everybody for watching. Hope that you join us next time on the RavenCast. Until then, grace and peace be with you. Bye-bye.
Bye.